Hi there folks, in this video I'm going to take you through playing Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton. This is going to be kind of a simple rendition aimed at beginners to intermediate players, so it won't be exactly the same as you hear on the record, in that it won't be all of the intricate parts Clapton plays throughout, but I'm going to teach you how you can strum your way through this one using just some simple chords. You only really need 4 chords to get through this one: a G, a D, a C, and an E minor. Okay, that'll get you through and you get a nice rendition of this. So I'm going to show you a simple version of this, and then I'm going to show you how you can do a little bit more with it as well. Okay, we'll look at putting in a couple of small bass runs, and we're going to look at a picking approach you could use through this. Okay, to kind of bring that to life a little bit more. And I'm also going to take you through that main melody as well, that guitar melody Clapton plays on the record. That's really iconic. I'm going to show you a couple of different approaches to that as well, how you can really simplify that if you're a newer player, or how you can play the actual thing if maybe you're a bit further along, and even a little fingerstyle rendition as well if you fancy something a little extra, maybe a nice little party piece or something cool to start off your rendition of this song. Okay, so stick about. I've put some timestamps in the description, so if you want to skip to a certain part, then skip on ahead. Okay, so have some fun with the various bits and pieces, and enjoy. Okay, right, so let's have a look at the strumming pattern that I'm going to suggest for Wonderful Tonight. I think this pattern will go all the way through the song. There's only a couple of points where you might like to throw in some extra bits perhaps, but you really could take this through the whole song and have a nice little rendition of Wonderful Tonight. The main pattern then is going to be a real classic. This is one that should be in every guitar player's repertoire. So if you don't know this one, we're going to take a close look at it now. If you do know this one, then maybe you just want to skip ahead to the performance of the song and have a go at strumming along with it, or maybe you want to stick about and have a closer look at what's going on in this pattern and some of the little bass runs that I'm going to suggest for this performance as well. So the strumming pattern then, I'm going to suggest this. Okay, that's a few bars worth of the pattern there. Some of you might be familiar with that already when you hear that in action. For those of you that are not, let's take a close look at what's going on here. That's the pattern across one bar. Okay, so if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4 on bars worth, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and okay, and again 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. And this is a great pattern that works in a great number of songs, in fact, from slow ballads like this one to more upbeat numbers as well. It really is a good multi-purpose pattern to have in your arsenal. So the interesting thing with this one then is what I call the missed stroke, the missed downstroke on beat number 3. We're doing this, we're doing 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now as a rough rule of thumb in strumming, we're going to try and go down on the beat and up off the beat. So here I'm going down, down, up, and here where the next down should fall on beat number 3, I'm missing that stroke out. You'll see my hand move still, okay, you'll see my arm move. I'm going to trick this hand into thinking it's doing the downstroke, but actually it's going to go past and miss the strings. And that's really important, I think, doing this missed stroke or this ghost stroke. When I show people this pattern often, what I see is this, okay? Hand gets caught here, freezes up on this invisible wall because it wants to go down on the beat. We feel really connected to that beat, and our hand like strumming down on that beat, but we're not going to do that here. We're going to do this instead. We're going to go do down, down, up, miss, up, down, up, down, down, up, miss, up, down, up. So you end up in a way then with kind of two upstrokes in a row. down, down, up, down, up. But we have to leave the space where that downstroke would have been. We can't just play down, down, up, down, up. Okay? Because now there's something missing, and all of a sudden we're playing in a weird time signature, and we don't want that. So here we go again, real slow. We've got down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, miss, up, down, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, so for Wonderful Tonight, I would take that pattern through the whole song. The chart I've written out for this one has kind of simplified the chords, so there's nothing really fancy in there. You can do the whole thing with G. And I've suggested this G here with 4 fingers, but if you play G like this with 3, or like this, okay, that's fine. Any G will do, but I like this one for this particular song. G, D, good old trusty D, C, and a little bit of E minor in this one as well. You can play that with fingers 1 and 2, or with fingers 2 and 3, whichever you prefer really. It doesn't make a great deal of difference. Certain changes might favour one or the other, but I'll leave that up for you to decide how you want to play that one. The only other chord that I would suggest for this one, and it is optional, you don't have to do it, but I think it adds a nice little element into the song if you do, and that's this. You'll see it written on the chart like this. Okay, this is what we call a D over F sharp. Some of you might like to play this with the full D chord here and your thumb coming over the top. I quite like that myself. I use that for a whole lot of things, but I've suggested this one for those of you with maybe smaller hands or haven't got reach to get your thumb round. This will do the job here. Okay, just make sure that you note what strings are not being used here. When you're playing D over F sharp like this, don't want to hear that E string. Okay, so be careful with your strum. You only go as far as the B string, or perhaps you're able to get this 3rd finger to maybe mute out that E string. That might be possible. Some of you might even try and get your pinky resting against that string, but I would just try and be careful in that right hand, I think there. Just be a bit controlled how you use this one. Now if you take a look at where that falls in the song, then this is going to be in the chorus, and it's quite prominent in the song. You hear this bass run from G down to this D over F sharp to E minor. Now this is the move that you hear in the bass, and it's a really common move. You'll find this all over the place in guitar songs. You'll find exactly the same sort of thing going on in a tune like Brown Eyed Girl and countless others. It's really popular, and often when the bass does this move down from G to E, hitting this F sharp note on the way, the guitar will pick up that change as well. And here we're going to hit the bass note, then strum some of the chord, bass note, strum some of the chord, come out into the E minor, hit the bass note, the E minor chord, and then strum the chord. And in fact pick up the strumming pattern again once you get to E minor after accenting that first note there. So here's that bass run in the chorus again. Okay. Now you could, if you find that too much, too fiddly, you could ignore that. You could just strum straight through there, and you could do something like this. You could do G, D, E minor. That would work great. So your chorus would be this. It would be C, sounds good to me. Okay, if that works for you, go for that. If you want that extra bit of sophistication in there, then try out the bass drum. nice little move if you can do it. Now the only other thing then I've added onto this one that you might want to have a go at is another little bass run, this time leading into the chorus, and it's a little run up this time rather than going down. This time we're going up, and you hear this at the end of the verse going into the start of the chorus. At the end of the verse you're playing a D chord, and you could just strum straight through, so the end of the verse could be C, D, and then the chorus starts C, D, strum your way through. That'd be absolutely fine, but the next step to try and elevate your performance of this one a little bit would be to get in this little bass run here. So at the end of the verse, okay, hear it again from the C at the end of the verse. Okay, right at the end of the verse then on the 4 and, so 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. I'm going to hit the 3rd fret on the A string, so that's the bottom end of your C chord. Accent just that note on its own, and then pick up the strumming, just like we did on the other bass run, where we went, hit the E, and picked up the strumming. Here, we're going to do that on the C. Now this one is maybe a little bit more fiddly in that it goes by a little bit quicker. Okay, you have to cram those notes in quite quick. The main run in the chorus is a bit slower, more spaced out, so you might want to try that one first before doing the one from the verse to the chorus. But again, it's up to you if you want to put those bits in. You'll see me do them in the performance, so have a look at that, see if it's something you fancy doing. Other than that, get that strumming pattern down, take that through all those changes, and you should have quite a nice little rendition of Wonderful Tonight to play around with, okay? So enjoy and have fun with that. Okay, here we go. I'm going to strum my way through Wonderful Tonight then, all the parts of the song with my suggested strumming pattern for you, putting in some of those little bass runs as well. So here we go, see if we can find a way through the whole thing. I'll shout out the sections as we go through. So let's have something like this. Okay, there we go, have some fun with that. Okay then, right, so I'm going to show you some picking that you can use on Wonderful Tonight as well. Now maybe you're more of a fingerstyle player anyway, or maybe you're looking to get into a little bit of fingerstyle. You might quite like the sound of the strings being picked out individually rather than strummed. The pattern I'm going to show you, you can do with fingers or you can do it with a plectrum. It's entirely up to you how you want to approach it, but I'll talk it through on the fingers because it's going to want just a little bit more explanation, I think, with those than with a plectrum. So I'll show you how it works over each chord in the song, and there's only a few of them, and I'll try and play through some of the sections as well so you can hear it in action and take it back to the song and play your way through if you want to. So here's the first little bit then. Here's a bit of the picking in action. Here's the start of the song. Okay, so that would be the intro or the melody part that appears throughout the song. Also the first line of the verse as well. G, D, C, D. Okay, so same as before if you've gone through the strumming part of this video. Now, you'll see I'm using this 4-fingered G here. I quite like that for this song and I think it works quite nicely, but it doesn't matter what G you use, okay, it's absolutely fine either way. It's a subtle difference. I prefer this one, doesn't matter if you want to use the other. So what am I doing then with this hand? Well, the way I would think about this is that we're using our thumb, our index, our middle and our ring finger, okay? So thumb, 1, 2, 3. And the fingers are pretty much going to stay on the same strings throughout and they're going to govern a string each. There's only going to be one point really where that's going to change, and that's later on in the chorus. I'll show you that when we get there. So they're going to be governing a string each, and the thumb is going to do a bit of moving about for us. So when we're playing a G chord, this will be the pattern. The thumb starts it off on the E string, the bass note of the chord. Okay, that's a G note down here on the bottom end. Then the fingers, they're going to stick to the same sequence, okay? Each time the chord changes, they're going to do the same thing on the same strings. It's only the thumb that's going to change. So on G, we start there with the thumb, and then it's going to be index, middle, index, or 1, 2, 1. That's going to be on the G, the B, and the G. So it's thumb, index, middle, index. 6th string, 3rd string, 2nd string, 3rd string. That's the first part of the pattern. Now you might like to just practice that and get used to doing that if you've never done any picking before. And that in itself sounds like quite a nice little pattern, okay? Now that's just the first half of the bar. That's 1 and 2 and. So for the second half of the bar, we're going to bring in this 3rd finger now. This is going to be taking care of the high E string for us. And the second half of the pattern will be this. That's the E string, B string, G string, B string. 3rd finger, 2nd finger, 1st finger, 2nd finger. Okay, so the whole pattern. Thumb, index, middle, index, ring, middle, index, middle. Okay, with numbers. Thumb, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2. Or the strings you're playing, 6, 3, you want to think about that. Hopefully that'll make sense, okay, whether you're thinking about fingers or strings. Now, what your fingers are doing on these top 3 strings then, that's going to stay the same as the chord changes. Through our first few chords, the only thing that's going to be different is the thumb is going to move place. Now when we play G, okay, it's a nice big 6-string chord there. We start with our thumb hitting that low string. When we go to D, we're now 4 strings. Our thumb comes across to the 4th string, to the D string. These fingers do exactly the same sequence. Okay, so we hit the thumb on the 4th string, and then it's 3rd string, 2nd string, 3rd string. 1, 2, 3, 2. Always the same sequence. When we change to C, doing the same on top. The thumb has now moved to the A string to hit the bottom note of the chord. Then it goes back to D. Okay, so G, D, C, D. Now, if you've picked up the tab for this, which is freely available, check the description down the bottom. You'll notice that I've suggested for the second bar of this, instead of D, D sus2. To play a D sus2, get your regular D, take that middle finger out, and we bring this open E into the chord. Nice little chord that one, it's quite pretty, and it works in Wonderful Tonight really well. Clapton uses those at points through the song as well. And so G, D sus2, C, and then a regular D. That's what I would suggest for the main pattern of this. Okay, now you're going to keep that going throughout the melody section at the start of the song, and every time that comes back in the song, you'll play that in exactly the same way we just looked at there. Through the verse starts with that same line: G, D sus2, C, D. Then it does it again: G, D sus2, C. Right, now here at the end of the verse, D, there's our little bass run that we looked at in the strumming part of the video. Right, and we're going to bring that into our picking as well, because why not? So the D bar starts the same as before, and we get to there, the end of 3. And on beat 4, 4 and. That's when our bass run falls. So here then, thumb, index, middle, index, ring, middle, thumb, thumb. On the A string, open, 2nd fret, leading us to the 3rd fret, which is going to be the start of a C chord for the chorus, where our pattern comes back. Okay, so end of the verse then, from the C at the end of the verse, you've got C, D, bass drum, and now we're in the chorus. Right, okay, this is new. Now in the chorus then, there's this bass run. We're going to pick that up with our finger picking as well, and we're just going to go through the notes of the chord here, like an arpeggio, I guess. So here's our G. Now you'll see I'm actually only playing a part of that G. this is a nice little finger picker's trick, okay? You don't always have to put all your fingers down of a chord when you're finger picking. If you're not using a string, arguably you can get away with not having your finger down. So here, you'll see I'm just using these two rather than all four like that, just those two that I'm using. Might make it a bit quicker to get into. There's my D over F sharp. Okay, then we come out into E minor. Now watch this, E minor. Pattern stays the same. It's the same pattern as a G chord, starting off on the 6th string, but we're actually using all the open strings. You don't actually have to put any fingers down over here for that. No hands. Give you a head start, get back on that C perhaps. Okay, now really that's all the main bits that you're going to encounter in this song, okay? The main picking pattern and those two little bass runs there, okay? But I'll give you a little playthrough of those sections as a whole as well, okay? So check this out. What I'll do is start with a pass through the intro, and then I'll do verse, chorus, bridge, final chorus, no kind of gaps or repeats. I'll just go straight on through and I'll try and call them out as we hit them as well. So here's our intro. Then verse. Final chorus. So hopefully you get the gist there with how those bits kind of work across the different sections. Take that pattern and have some fun with that, okay, across the main song. You can play along to the record with that, or you can do your own little unaccompanied version. You might like to use that playing along with someone who's strumming, whatever you like really, okay. So try and get that feeling comfortable. Try it out on each chord. Make sure that these fingers know where they're going, okay? You're not always going to be able to kind of look at exactly what they're doing. You might sometimes want to look over here or look up at your audience and look like you're having a good time. So this hand wants to develop its own kind of muscle memory as well. So start by just making that chord and practicing that pattern without looking. Okay, let that right hand start to develop eyes at the end of your fingers, okay? Get a feel of where those strings are. And really, they don't have to move away from the string that they're on. Hardly at all. The only time they're going to change strings is on the chorus rundown. Okay, that's the only bit where they're on different strings there. For that, they're on the D, G and B strings. All the rest of the time, the G, B and E strings. Okay, so hope you have fun with that picking pattern. If you fancy some extra bits, maybe picking up a bit of the melody, then stick about, and I've got some more things planned for the rest of the video. Thanks a lot. Okay, so here's the basic melody down in a lower octave. It starts on beat 3 of the bar, so 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, right. That's how it sounds, okay, against a beat. What am I doing in there then? Well, you may notice that there's only a few notes going on there really, and actually it can all take place within these first 3 frets. The majority of that all happens around the 2nd fret. So if you start here at the open B, then 2nd fret on the G, open G, back to 2nd fret on the G. That's your first phrase. Second phrase, almost the same. The last note's different. It's the 2nd fret on the D string. So first time, 2nd time. 3rd time, almost exactly the same as the first. The only thing that's different really is the timing, but the notes you play are the same. Okay. Open B, 2nd on the G, open G, back to that 2nd on the G. So the first line of this, 1, 2. Okay, on that 3rd time, the last note is slightly delayed and it falls in the next bar, rather than 3 and 4 and. On the 3rd time, it's 3 and 4, 1. Okay, now if that sounds a bit like gobbledygook, listen to the record and try and get those notes syncing up with what you're hearing. Okay, use your ear to guide you through there. But if you want to count that along, then on the 3rd time, hold back that last note for beat 1 in the next bar. Now that goes round again, and the first time is the same. The 2nd time is the same. The 3rd time kind of happens the same, but now from the last note, the 2nd fret on the G, we're going to carry on, work an I up through that last phrase. Okay, so here's the 2nd line. Together. In that lower octave, that sounds recognisable as Wonderful Tonight. Okay, now you might like to use that to start your song off, or like Clapton does, you might like to return to that little melody in between the sections. I'll leave it up to you how you want to use it, but if you want a simple version of that, there it is right there. Okay, enjoy. Okay, right, in this section I'm going to show you the basic melody up in the octave that it's played in on the record, but I'm going to show you just a basic version that doesn't use any bends or slides or anything fancy, just the basic notes, so you can get comfortable playing those before you consider any extra techniques, or maybe you're just not that far along in your playing yet and you want just a simple rendition of this melody. Okay, so here it is. I'll play you through it. Something like this will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. part there. So what am I doing? Well, if you're watching that through, one thing you'll see me doing is using multiple fingers. Okay, it's really important to not chase these notes around with one finger. Okay, that's rubbish. That's rubbish guitar playing. You're excused if you've only got one finger, okay, but the rest of you, get those digits moving. Really, you should be doing this with 2, 3 or even 4 fingers. So I would suggest starting here at the 7th fret on the E string. Now you can move these notes around if you like. Okay, you could move that 7 over to the 12th on the B. Get the same result. Choose something you're comfortable with, but I'll walk you through what I've written down in the tab and you can adjust it if you like. Okay, so 7 on the E, down to 10 on the B, 8 on the B, back to 10 on the B. That's the first phrase. I'm using 1st, 4th and 2nd fingers for that. Second phrase almost the same. It's just the last note that's different. There, that one. That's the 9th fret on the G string. So 7 on the E, 10, 8 on the B, down to 9 on the G. That's the second phrase. Now those 2 phrases will get repeated on the second line of the melody. So watch out for that when it comes back round again. Third little phrase then is almost exactly the same as the first, but the last note is slightly delayed. Okay, so here it is against a count, and watch for that last note being delayed. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4, 1. Okay, that last note there, going back to the 10th fret on the B string, falls in the next bar, falls on beat 1. So that's your third phrase there. Second line of the melody then. That first phrase goes by again. Second. And we start the third. And what was the last note on the first line? Okay, the last note of the third phrase on the first line. The 10th fret here on the B string. That now becomes the start of the last phrase of this, the ascending phrase. So 10 on the B, then 7, 8 on the E, then we're going to jump up to the 12th fret on the E, come back down to the 10th fret on the E. So starting from the B, 10, then change to the E, 7, 8, 12, 10. So the whole second line. Those are the basic notes there. You can move those notes around if you find it easier to play. Change the fingering. You could try sliding into some of those notes, playing around with hammers, bends, whatever you like, okay? But that is the basic melody there if you want to have a bash at doing it. So have some fun with that. Okay, right, so the main guitar melody then, played a bit like Clapton plays it, okay, putting in those bends and those slides. Now I know that some of you won't be able to get to your higher frets if you've got an acoustic that's maybe locked at 12th fret, maybe at the 15th fret, so I'll give you a couple of options for how you can play these notes. But if you're a bit more adventurous in your playing, or you're playing on electric where the bends are a bit easier, then this might be the part for you. So it starts with a bend at the 10th fret. Okay. Now, I'll do a separate video on the bending technique, but the important thing to keep in mind with bending is not your fingers pushing the string, okay? It's not these fingers trying to push that string up, okay? It's not your fingers, that's rubbish. What's going on here? Fingers stay completely locked in place, and we've got this motion going on. Thumbs over the top here, and the hand is swinging from the wrist. It's turning, okay, like you'd open a door handle, okay, or turn a screwdriver, or whatever it might be, turn a tap. Okay, it's a sideways twisting motion. It's not the fingers pushing, they stay locked, and the whole hand twists from the wrist, okay? That's where the power comes from, not pushing those fingers. And you'll see here I've got 3 fingers lined up on this string. First finger is not really pushing down on the strings, it's kind of behind on mute duty, okay? This is resting across the strings back here, acting as a bit of a mute. Now, maybe not as bad on acoustic as it is on electric, but when you're playing on a guitar that's plugged in, you really have to be mindful of strings that you're not playing as well as the ones that you are playing. So this is on mute duty to try and stop any extra noise that I might get from bashing into the other strings. Second finger is supporting the third finger. They're both pushing down here, they're both grabbing hold of that string so that it doesn't ping away. A nice strong grip on that. Now this 10th fret then, we bend it up to this note here. If you think about the basic melody, okay, we're getting the first note by bending into it rather than picking our way down, bending up in and back down again. Okay, so 10th fret then, we bend up to the 12th fret and back down, 8, 10, all on the B there. Second phrase, we do the same bend, down to the 8th fret, finish on the 9th fret on the G. So first phrase, second phrase, third phrase, then it goes round again. Right, now the last bit. This is where Clapton slides along the B string to get these notes. Okay, that's what it sounds like to me. I may well be wrong, but you know, no one's perfect. But it kind of sounds to me like he's sliding through those notes. There are other ways you can articulate them. You could use hammer-ons, you could use more bending, but I think the sliding works quite well. Now these last couple of notes in particular, this is where you'll run into trouble if your guitar is locked maybe at the 12th or perhaps 14th, 15th fret area. I've got this cutaway, allows me to get all the way up to the 17th. Okay. But if you can't get there, then here's what you can do. You can take these notes and move them somewhere else. And it could be here. 10, 12, 13 on the B, then 12, 10 on the E. Okay, you could use that approach. Or you could move them over to the E string, starting at the 5th fret, 7, 8, 12, 10. That way you can still get in some of those slides there as well. I'll leave it up to you how you want to kind of go about that. But that's the part there, okay? So here it is then to a count with a something like this. Okay, if that's the part for you, then have some fun with that. If you want to try a fingerstyle part, then stick around for the next bit. Okay, so for this little section then, I'm going to show you a fingerstyle way that you can play this melody, okay? So it'll incorporate the melody down in the lower octave, and we're going to pick out some notes from the chord sequence as well to try and make this into quite a fleshed out little part. This is not super easy if you're at a beginner level still, okay? So maybe this is more of an intermediate level if you've been playing for a little bit, or if you're more of a fingerstyle player and are looking for a way to get started on a fingerstyle rendition of this. You might like to try something like this, okay? So here it is, something like this. Let's go for 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, right, so what you saw there then was the full kind of intro melody where it goes twice through. Later in the song that goes by just once. And what I did there was at the end of each line, for the ascending phrase, I played a slightly different thing. So what I'm going to do is show you the pattern that's going on through each of the chords, and show you these two ending phrases. You can play both of them, or you could just pick one that you like doing and make that your one to use, okay? So let's take a little close-up look at this then. The sequence starts on G, and as we've seen before, our melody doesn't actually start till beat 3. So we're going to fill out the first part of the bar with some picking on a G chord. Now, a little finger picking trick is that when you're picking out individual notes from a chord, you don't always need to put down the whole chord, okay? I don't need to do this whole big G chord to pick those first few notes out, because all of these other fingers I don't need. I just need this one. I just need the bottom note of the chord. Another finger picking trick is to think ahead as well, and try and make sure you've got fingers spare in your left hand so you don't tie yourself into a knot. So the first bar, I would play it something like this, I think. Okay, again. Right. Now, first part of the bar then. 1 and 2 and. That's the first half. We're hitting the G note on the bottom here, so on the low E string, 3rd fret. I'm playing that with the thumb. Now I would suggest then bringing the thumb down to the D string for an open D, index finger on the open G, back to the thumb on a D. So I'd actually approach this using thumb and my first 2 fingers over this side. You could do it differently, okay, but I think that sometimes limiting the fingers in the right hand to begin with can actually help not get tangled up over here as well, and try and keep things consistent. So I'm going to show you using these. So here's our first bit of the bar then. Now you might need to just practice that and get comfortable doing that before the next bit. For the next part, the melody comes in. Okay, fingers for this, okay, middle finger on the B string. It's at a slow enough pace that I can actually do 3 of those notes with my index finger there. Classical players would tell me if I'm sure and say that I should be alternating these 2 fingers. I don't really have much of a classical picking technique. It's a little bit more folky, a little bit more anything goes, but I try to stick to some good habits and not get myself tangled up. Okay, that's something you should maybe try and aim for as well. Don't run out of fingers. At a slow pace like this, you can get by with just 1 finger sometimes, okay? You could probably play this whole thing with just thumb and index finger as well, okay? And I'll leave it up to you how you kind of want to go through it, but I'll show you what I'm doing as well. Okay, that's our first bar. Now, at the end of this bar then, actually want to try and line ourselves up for the next bar. So this second finger that we finished up on the G string, that's going to stay there for a minute. I like to use my thumb then to come over the top and grab this F sharp note down the bottom end, 2nd fret on the low E string. Now if you don't like using the thumb, you can use your 1st finger for that. First finger will work just fine. That's why it's important, I think, to start this pattern on the 3rd finger, so you set yourself up nicely for going through the rest of it. Okay, so there it is with that 1st finger, or you could use the thumb on the bottom end. If you're used to doing that for things like your D over an F sharp, then go for it, okay? Won't make too much difference really. Okay, right. Same picking pattern in the right hand, okay? Thumb moving down to the D string, index picking the G in the first half of the bar, picking through that melody in the second half, leaving this note at the end of the bar, so 2nd fret on the D string, leaving that down, carry over into the next bar. So next bar is the C chord. Same picking pattern really for the right hand. Here, rather than making a whole C chord, okay, these 2 fingers form up. This one stays free. We're doing that move on the G string, playing those melody notes. Okay, and then I played this for the ascending phrase at the end of the line. And that finishes up the 1st line and leads us into the start of the 2nd line. So we're grabbing 2 notes together using the thumb for the lowest, and here I'm using my index on the G. Thumb and middle, 2nd on the D, open B, and this might be a little bit of a stretch. Thumb's hitting the 4th fret on the D string, pinky's fretting over here. 1st finger, 1st fret on the B string, we'll grab those 2 together. Tend to gravitate towards picking that with my middle finger. You could use your index. And the 4th move is this here. That's the 2nd fret on the G and an open E. If you're finding this one a bit of a stretch, a bit uncomfortable, a bit too far to go, you could move this note here, this C note, move it from the B string at the 1st fret to the 5th fret on the G. So 4 and 5, D and G. It needs a little bit more side to side movement, so you might have to practice that if that's the way you want to go about it. Comfortable staying in position there. Right, the ascending phrase then leads on to this. Now 2 notes from the G chord, giving us our bass note at the start of the pattern, and this D note here, 3rd fret on the B string, which is the last high note that we hear. Okay, our ears want to hear that note there as the last note of the melody. But it falls at the start of the next pass through. Okay, so now the 2nd line starts with these 2. Okay, it's going to carry on almost the same. So from here, the 1st half of the bar, that finger can stay there, but it's got to move so our melody can be played. Now here on the second line then, my fingering's changed. At the start of the first line, I wanted to start with my third finger here. Now I'm forced into this, second and third. That means my first finger is doing the shifting about for the melody, at least for the first part of it. What I would do is here, bring that middle finger over. That little position change is going to be really important for getting you into the D, whether that's with the index finger or the thumb like we talked about. You're going to need to change there. Okay. Then the D and the C bars, they're the same. The little ending then that I've suggested on the end, rather than this, the high one, here's the low one. Starts the same, open D, second fret on the G. We're going to move the low note down an octave, so now it's the E and the B string, the second fret on the E, and the C note over here, first fret on the B, and the A string, and the E string. So either choose which one of those you like the most, or try them both out. Try switching them around, low, high, high, low, whatever you like. Okay, right, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. There's hopefully something in there for everyone, whether you're more of a beginner player, or maybe pushing on to intermediate, maybe breaking out to a bit of fingerstyle, or looking to try and explore bending for the first time. I've put a link down in the description for the tab for this lesson, okay? So everything I've been through, I've tabbed out, and you can get access to that. I'm going to make that free for this lesson, but you can leave a donation for it if you like, but no pressure. I'll also leave down there links for things like Patreon. So this video will go to my Patreons first. If you want early access to lessons and things that I create, then you might want to support me over there as well. That'd be grand. We really appreciate it if you do. But no pressure at all. You can take this lesson and have as much fun with it as you like for free, okay? So take care out there, folks, and I'll see you next time.